share, recipe share. Share a little recipe with Recipe Share. Recipe Share, Recipe Share. Share a little recipe with Recipe Share.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Recipe Share, a program on AADL TV where we take a few minutes to talk about recipes in a featured category. Today's category is cooking with cereal. I'm Elizabeth, and as usual today, I'm joined by Katie and Beth to tell us about their recipes. So, Katie, why don't you start us off?
All right. Well, this is a little interesting category. I think I actually chose this category and definitely expected to be sharing with you all some sort of dessert. That's not how I ended up, though. So anyway, found my recipe in this book. It's Food and Wine Staff Favorites. So it's 150 of their most beloved recipes from like a bunch of different chefs. And the chef that did the recipe that I'm sharing is Stephanie Izard, who I know from the TV show Top Chef. I'm a big fan. She's the first female winner. So I was like, yes, I'm definitely trying this, even though it's one of the weirdest recipes I think I've ever seen. So it's charred broccoli with blue cheese dressing and spiced Crispies. I'd never heard of anything like that before. So I thought, well, it sounds super strange, but let's give it a go. There's a bunch of different components to this recipe. The first one is the blue cheese dressing. So you can make that ahead of time, and I would suggest it because it does need to cool in the middle. It's a really interesting process of making the dressing that I'd never used before. So you heat heavy cream and blue cheese on the stove, and you stir in some crushed red pepper, which was really, really tasty in this. And then you cool it completely, and then you whisk in sour cream and some more blue cheese. So that was really good. Then you blanch your broccoli, and then you make a harissa vinaigrette in your blender. So it's harissa, lemon zest, lemon juice, soy sauce, mustard, sriracha. You blend all that up, and then you cook your Rice Krispies in butter and some of the harissa vinaigrette to give it a little spice. And then set those aside to drain and cool. And then you grill your broccoli until it's charred on both sides. And you put harissa vinaigrette on that as well when you're grilling it. Then you serve it. So you spread the blue cheese dressing on a platter, and you put the broccoli over top of that. And then you sprinkle on your Rice Krispies and serve it with the harissa vinaigrette. I thought it was okay. It wasn't my favorite. I didn't expect it to be, because I honestly just was trying it for the weirdest factor. But what I did not expect was to get out of it this awesome blue cheese dressing recipe. I had leftover of it, and I was eating Cobb salads for like 2 weeks because I just like wanted to eat this dressing. And I love that it contains a third of a cup of heavy cream, because I'm always making recipes and having like a little bit of heavy cream left over, and I don't know what to do with it. So now I do know what to do with it. I will make this dressing. The other thing that I did was I actually made the Rice Krispies again because I was making a cheesy carrot casserole for Thanksgiving that called for cornflakes over top of it. It's a very traditional recipe in my family, but I did not want to buy cornflakes when I already had Rice Krispies, and I don't eat a lot of cereal anyway. So I thought, let me try and top the casserole with these Krispies, and it worked totally fine. And I would do that again as well. So the components of this recipe were okay, but I don't know that I'll ever make the whole thing again.
Yeah. I was going to say it sounded labor intensive, but yes, the dressing sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like the flavors sound like they would like interact well, like the coolness of the blue cheese and then the harissa and the charred broccoli. Like it sounds good together, although I agree with Beth, labor intensive. And it sounds like it involves a lot of like what do you call it? Like it sounds like it creates a lot of dishes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I was wondering though, when you put the Rice Krispies on your casserole, did you season those or did you just put them on? Okay. With the harissa too?
Yeah, I did. I just cooked them in the butter and harissa, like just like the recipe, even though my casserole recipe doesn't call for the cornflakes to be cooked. I was thought I'd try it anyway, and it worked.
Yum.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, enough of my weirdness and on to yours, Beth. What'd you pick?
Me? Oh yeah, that's right, me. Well, what's funny about this category is that I've had a recipe for as long as I've been dating, or with my husband Curtis, who like this is going on 40 years. Actually, he wrote this out a few years before we met and it's Raisin Bran muffins, by the way, but when he was moving out of his mom's house, he was copying down a bunch of her recipes. So we've been making this for years. And so what's really cool about it, first, you gotta like raisins, but there's alternatives. So it's 4.5 cups of Raisin Bran and 2 cups of buttermilk. And then a 1/2 cup of oil. This calls for a cup of sugar. This time I used just over half. I was just kind of curious. Anyway, a couple eggs, salt, flour, and soda. And then the thing is, it says you should let it sit for at least 6 hours, best to let it sit for 2 to 3 days. So you put it in your fridge and forget about it. And then you make them into muffins, which is what I ended up doing. I let it go a couple days because the buttermilk really softens the cereal. And then, so it makes it really easy. Once you've got your batter done, then you can just make 6 muffins in the toaster oven if you want to do it that way, for half an hour, 20 minutes actually. So it doesn't really even take that long to bake. They're very good. They're delicious, fresh out of the oven with butter on them. And then after all these years, I decided to change it up a little and I added banana, and it was really good with banana. And I have a couple pictures of, close up and the muffins themselves. But so I realized that you can totally, mix these up a little. And if you don't like raisins, you could get something like all bran flakes. And I wonder even if Wheaties would be a possibility. Maybe I'll experiment. But anyway, this is the recipe. It's super simple, and it's always nice to have fresh muffins in the morning. So yeah.
That's amazing. I have never heard of that technique of I know that sometimes you let batter rise if you have yeast, but I've never heard of having it just sit in the fridge for a couple days, but
Hey.
Sounds like it makes it really yummy.
Yeah, it does. It's, because it only takes minutes to throw it together. And so
Right.
it really feels like it doesn't take very long, because then by the time you're ready to make the muffins, you get your spare 30 minutes or 20, and it's worth it. So yeah, I'm happy to share it with you all. It's a good recipe.
Did Kurt like the changes you made?
Yeah. He thought it was good.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what did you think with less sugar? Was it still good?
I think it still was good, especially with the ones with bananas. Not all of them had banana, but I don't think it really needs a ton of sugar. It's going to be up to you, but it's definitely tasty without as much sugar, and better for you. So, yeah. So if you don't have any other questions, let's find out what Elizabeth made this time.
Sure. So I feel like I sometimes repeat myself, but in case there's new watchers, I'm not a big dessert person. And similar to Katie, I was finding that a lot of cereal recipes are for a dessert. So that was a little frustrating for me. I was looking through a lot of things. We also don't really keep a lot of cereal around the house. That's not really what we eat for breakfast. So I was getting frustrated because I was like, I don't want to buy a whole box of cereal and then only use some of it. Anyway, so that's my background. But then I was talking to my mom, telling her about this, and she was like, well, what if you do something with oats? Because it's not technically cereal, but it's definitely like breakfasty, and that might open up your possibilities a little more. And indeed it did. So I decided to make a version of basically make my own granola bars, because my fiance and I've mentioned this before too, but we're pretty avid runners. And so we often try to buy granola bars to snack on just quickly before we run for a little bit of energy. But a lot of the store-bought ones have a lot of sugar or whatever. So anyway, made my own. This was a recipe that I got off the internet. I can't remember the name of the site at this point, but I do have the link saved. But it was some random, like just, I don't know, random site. And it was really easy. I modified the recipe a bit, but basically you take oatmeal and almonds and you pulse them in a food processor to break them up a bit so that they're not as big. Put them in a bowl, add a few more oats that haven't been processed. And then they had the option to add in flax. I didn't have any. I didn't want to buy any. So I just added a little bit more oats. Called for raisins. I'm not a raisin person, so I added dried cherries. That was fine. And then on the stovetop, you mix together half a cup of honey, 3/4 cup of peanut butter, and 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. And then you heat that up until it's like pourable. Pour that over the dry mixture, stir it together really well. This hurts your arm because it is pretty thick. And then you add in at the end a small amount of mini chocolate chips. And then you press it into a parchment lined baking dish, put it in the fridge for at least 2 hours. I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out. I liked all of the whole ingredients, even though honey is just sugar. I still prefer that rather than like, whatever they put in store-bought granola bars. And the exciting thing was that my fiance in particular, like, loved them and was super excited, thought they were great to eat before a run. I also think they're really good. I think next time I would add a little bit more coconut oil because they did get a little crumbly. So I have a couple photos here of them in the pan and then also them cut. So they didn't act, it's a little bit of a challenge to have them act fully as a granola bar. But still fine. If you put them on a plate, like, it works. So I think I would add just a little bit more coconut oil next time to hopefully hold them together a little better. But they were really good and super easy. As you were saying, Beth, about your recipe, like the whole thing took like 5 minutes to put all together. So that was nice. And, also, I think ultimately cheaper than buying the store-bought granola bars because those are expensive. So I would make again. I thought it was good. And I ended up being really happy with it. And I think you could make a lot of modifications based on what you like, which is always good for a recipe. You could add different dried fruit or different nuts or any of that. So it was good. That's my granola bars with oats for my cereal choice.
That's great. I am so excited that you tried this. I have a very similar recipe bookmarked that I'm going to try this weekend. And so to get your feedback about them holding together is really what I was wondering. Like, is this actually going to? Because that's something that I think I struggle with a lot with bars and things like that. So I will add a little bit of extra coconut oil to the recipe. In fact, I'll just use your recipe rather than the one that I have bookmarked. You've already done it, that's the beauty of this.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's really, besides granola bars being expensive, there's so much waste too, all the wrapping and all that. So it's always good to have something like that you can just make yourself.
Yeah, I liked it and I would do it again. So cool. Okay, well, if there are no
one other thing, sorry.
Yeah.
But I found the same problem when I was looking for recipes. I also don't like a lot of sweets, and everything was dessert. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, like, wait a minute, I have a recipe. So anyway, thank you.
No, I think it is really, like, I don't know. I was excited about this topic, but then frustrated because I didn't want to make, I don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me to make like, especially the color, like a lot of the colored cereals with like bright colors, and they're like, make this with like Lucky Charms marshmallows, and I was like, ew, I don't want to.
Fruit Loops and
Yeah, exactly.
They have their place, but anyway.
Totally.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for watching Recipe Share, and be sure to click the link below to look at the event page on aadl.org to find the recipes we talked about and share your own in the comments if you would like. Please join us next time on Recipe Share, and we are looking forward to seeing what you've been making. So thank you for sharing your recipes. We'll see you next time.
Recipe Share, share a little recipe.